everyone, even for showing up today, so that we can continue with this series. After today, we will have 2 days remaining. After today, we will have 2 days remaining. That is tomorrow and on Friday. So kindly allow me to turn on my video so that you can be able to see me. One thing that I understand is that there are people who are good at listening and looking. There are people who like engaging all their senses when they are studying or leading. So for those who might be new, those who have joined us today, my name is Eliud Goge. I'm a counseling psychologist. I'm also the founder and CEO, Newness Counseling Organization. That is a non-governmental professional organization that offers mental health and counseling services to individuals, organizations, groups, and anywhere, any form of gathering or any place that mental health services are required. Much welcome for our today's session. We are going to look at, I'll start with effect, and then we will go to help seeking behavior, and we will also look at, I realized that we may not look at coping mechanism today because coping and prevention are actually one and the same thing. So I realized that if I talk about coping, I will be talking about prevention, because to cope means to prevent something. And tomorrow is now where officially we have the topic of prevention. So I felt if we look at coping strategies or mechanisms, I might preempt tomorrow's presentation from one of our own counselor Marcella. So nikasema we look at effect instead of coping, nikaongeza effect of gender-based violence, and then we also look at seeking behavior for those people who are victims of gender-based violence. So karibuni sana, thank you so much. And immediately I'm going to start. So that is the first page. Every time I make a slide, I always make sure that I go through every page. Even if hiyo page yenye nimeanza nayo ni picha yangu tu iko, sometimes I even tend to explain to you the photo, why maybe I was smiling, why maybe kama hapa sikuwa nimenyoa ndevu, the same way mnaniona hapo kwa screen sijanyoa ndevu, kwa nini nilikuwa, so hata naweza wa explainia. Most likely hiyo watch unaona nimevaa hapo, most likely haiko ina function, ilikuwa tu ya kutesa, ya kutesa kwa picha. So thank you so much and welcome for our today's session. Now let us go immediately to the second page, or the second slide, and that is effects of gender-based violence. There were quite many, and so I tried to put them into a more composed way, but I'm going to briefly touch on each and every section that I've put in this. So hii nilipata online and then nikaona wameipresent vizuri sana, nikasema why not use this one. So this is longer term impact of gender-based violence. This is long-term effect, because we have short-term effects and we have long-term effect. But you come to realize that when it comes to gender-based violence, there is it's almost similar, that the short-term effects are the same as long-term effect. So for example, we are going to start from this corner where we have depression, and then we go clockwise. We will go clockwise. So we have depression, so long-term effect. So one thing that I want to say is that a victim of gender-based violence, most likely they are going to have a very troublesome life. I've said most likely. I've not said automatically. I've said most likely, because when someone has gone through gender-based violence, any form of abuse, that one works as a rubber stamp. Ni kama mtu amewekwa rubber stamp pahali ambayo haitawahi toka. So majority of people who usually go through long gender-based violence, they experience depression. I'm sure that majority of us, if not everyone, is aware of what depression is. So depression is where you have low and high moods. and especially low moods. Sorry, not high and low, but you have low moods, which is characterized by withdrawal, lack of interest in activities that you use to enjoy, staying indoor, isolation, and all that, use of drugs, moodiness, lack of appetite, and so many other symptoms. So somebody who has been abused, whether we looked at types of abuse, types of violence, I think during our first session. Somebody who has been sexually abused, someone who has been physically abused, someone who have been emotionally abused, that is psychologically abused, someone who has been socio-economically abused, those people usually experience depression. We have flashbacks. So flashbacks usually show up, to majority, flashbacks usually show up as nightmares. So we also, I think, next one is nightmares, but flashback is now where you start to replay the events of the abuse. So if, for example, you are sexually abused, let's say you are raped, someone raped you. So especially when you don't have much psychological involvement or engagement, by that I mean, umekaa tu maybe for example chini kwa nyumba, maybe una watch movie, and then kwa hiyo movie somebody is raped, that immediately shifts your attention from watching the movie, the movie that is on the TV screen, to now watching the movie that is in your mind, in your memory, the movie of your own rape incidents. Those are flashbacks. You start replaying the memories of those people, of the incidents that happened when you were raped. So those are flashbacks. And there's nothing as traumatizing, as hurting, as replaying a painful memory. Believe me, there's nothing as dangerous as that. Why? Because when you replay a memory, you relive the moment. When you replay a memory of rape, you relive that rape. By the end of that day, you'll be feeling like you have been raped that specific day. So there are incidences that have been reported that when somebody is replaying memories of an extremely painful incident, they even feel the same physical pain, physiological pain that they felt when that event happened in real life. Because our minds are so powerful. Our minds are the most powerful computers. They can create and generate anything. Right now, if you sat down, and believe me, if you sat down and started thinking, I have a terrible migraine, I have a terrible headache, it won't take you long before you start having a headache. So your mind has the possibility of generating, recreating, and creating pain, either from memories or even from nowhere. So when somebody gets flashbacks of the event, then it really stresses them. So flashback is one of the effects of gender-based violence. Number 3, we have dissociation. To dissociate, the opposite of dissociate is associate. Sometimes that is what I do when I feel like I don't understand the term, so I try to dissect it. So dissociate is the opposite is associate. Now because I know the meaning of associate, now I can proudly tell you what dissociate is, even though maybe most likely I had no idea what it is. Now, dissociation is to detach. To associate, to relate, then that means that to dissociate is to detach. This is where somebody withdraws. They want to be with themselves, by themselves. They don't want to interact and relate with others. They just want to be left alone. Why does someone want to be left alone? Because of the pain that they are feeling. When we will be looking at healing from gender-based violence, we will start with factors that influence healing from gender-based violence. There's something magical that you're going to discover from that section. That section is really going to be powerful. So when somebody is dissociating, it is because they are trying to hide the pain. Let me tell you something. I've never done this, but I know it's a fact. Anybody, especially a Christian, you commit a sin. Let's say for example, you are a student and you are really you are really niwe unaendaka pale, you are the altar boy, na kama si altar boy wewe ni the lady mwenye huwa anatengeneza hiyo altar, you dress the altar. Kama ni wewe ni wa praise and worship, wewe ndio unacheza keyboard pale, wewe ndio msaidizi wa pastor ama vitu kama hizo. When you commit a sin, for example, ukue wewe ni kijana na ndio you should not have sex before marriage, and then you do it especially on a Saturday night. Na the next Sunday, the next morning ni Sunday, unaenda kuiba pale kwa praise and worship. Wewe unaenda kuiba hivi, unaona ni kama kila mtu anajua. Akia nani? Kila mtu anajua vitu kwa nimelala nikifanya. Kila mtu anajua. Ile masaa yote nilispread kwa kila mtu. Hiyo kama movie kila mtu anaona. Kila mtu that's what happens. Especially ikuwe wewe ni Catholic. You are a Catholic. And then ile wakati wa Holy Communion, waiba ile wimbo ya anayekula mwili wangu. Alafu sasa unatoka kwa maidi huko. Unaacha kufikiria kuhusu the body of Christ yenye napeana, unakumbuka mwili yangu pale imelala. Alafu sasa ikuwe yule jamaa mwenye mulilala na yeye mwenye sasa unaanza ku play back mwenye ndi anayekula mwili wangu. Ikuwe sasa both the lady and the gentleman, nyinyi wote mko kwa praise and worship, huwa tu mnaangaliana hivi, mnaanza kusmile. So the guilt part of it, the shame part of it is what makes most gender-based violent victims not to speak out. They want to stay by themselves because they think that everybody can see what happened to them. Some of them even consider the act as dirty. We'll be looking at that. So wanaona wacha nikae peke yangu, I don't want to interact with people. Kama ni kazini mnaona ameanza kukaa peke yake. Wakati mnaenda for example kama ni games mlikuwa mnaenda, mnaona hataki kukuja hizo games, anataka kukaa peke yake. So that is one of the major effect of gender-based violence on the victims. Now, we have nightmares. So nightmares, as I had mentioned, this is when you are sleeping, and you know, dreams and nightmares are actually the mind replaying events that have already happened, because you will never meet a new person in a dream or in a nightmare unless it's not a nightmare. Now it becomes a vision, or God was speaking to me or something like that. So, but nightmares usually root from our memories. So if you have good memories, if you have the entire life, all your life you have been doing marriages, doing parties, being happy, enjoying life, there are people who love you, unapelekwa out, unafanywa vitu mzuri, surprises here and there, you cannot have nightmares. You will have sweet dreams. That's the difference. And that is why I always discourage people, wacha kuambia kila mtu akuwe na sweet dreams. Kwanza muulize maisha yako imekuwa aje, ndio mjue kama utamuish sweet dreams ama utamuish not very scary nightmares. Because your mind is now replaying the memories of events that you have already lived in reality. So nightmares are now the events of that horrible experience that you had, and then now the mind replays that memory while you are sleeping. And the pain is the same. It's just actually because one thing that I want you to understand about nightmares is that your mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is not real. That is why when you are dreaming being raped, if you are a rape victim, for example, when you are dreaming being raped, you are going to scream, you are going to shout, you are going to feel the pain, you most likely wake up crying. Because your mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is not, and what is imagined. So when your mind is replaying the memories, your body responds as though you are living that moment at that particular time. So your mind does not tell your body that, guys, wewe mdomo wacha kushout, huyu mtu anikurara amelala, ana replay memory, so wacha kushout. No. Your mind does not say that to your body. So your body responds as though that experience is happening at that particular moment. So nightmares happens a lot. The next one is impacts of PTSD. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. So that is very, very much common, because when you have experienced an extremely overwhelming emotional experience which is painful and unpleasant, then definitely you're most likely going to have a post-traumatic stress disorder. The other one is self-harm. This one happens when you feel worthless. We'll be looking at that next. When you feel worthless, you want to harm yourself because you have been something like rape. I'm using rape because it's one of the most extreme gender-based violent experience that you can have. So, for example, if you have been raped by someone, labda ulirepiwa na chokora, or somebody who, somebody mwenye unaona hapana, this was not, huyu mtu hapana. So some of the victims consider themselves dirty. Anajiona mimi ni mchafu. Anajiona mimi, I'm valueless right now. I'm not worthy anything. They start questioning their worth. They start questioning their value. They start questioning their purpose to be alive. And that's now where they start developing self-harm ideations or thoughts, or they even actually attempt suicide. So that is self-harm. So they went to harm themselves because they don't find a reason to live anymore. They don't feel like they can live with that experience. They don't feel like they can live with what has just happened to them. So they just want to die. They are most likely going to make irresponsible behaviors, to engage into irresponsible behaviors such as becoming prostitutes. There are so many of them, especially ladies, akirepiwa anasema mimi sasa ni mchafu, nisharepiwa, afadhali hata nikajiuza hii mwili, niuze hii mwili because I'm already dirty, I'm already useless, I'm already valueless, I'm not even worth being alive. So that is what happens, and some of them want to harm themselves. We have loss of education, very common. When someone has been abused through any act of gender-based violence, if this person is a student, they are most likely going to drop out of school. Next one, we have ongoing relationship difficulties. If, for example, you are abused by somebody who loved you, it was a romantic relationship and your partner abused you, you're most likely going to say, I'll never get into a relationship. And that's where now you become the founder of the organization, Love is a Scam Foundation. Love is a Scam Foundation. So now you say, so you now start, you have that belief that now love is a scam. And if you get into another relationship, you are most likely never going to trust anyone again. Most likely, you are never going to trust anyone again. That translates to you're most likely going to have difficulties and challenges when it comes to any other relationship that you're going to find yourself in. So ongoing relationships becomes very challenging because, again, if, for example, you were abused before you got into that relationship, and maybe it was rape, and during that rape you got pregnant, you did an abortion, and you cannot dare to open up to the man who is, umepata type yako, and then if I expose what happened to me to this guy, he's definitely going to run away. Atakibia kama Kipchoge, ataenda bio kabisa. So instead of expressing myself and telling him what happened to me, I'm going to keep this to myself. I'm not going to talk about it with him. I'll make sure that even he never meets my family, he never meets anyone who knows what happened to me, because I don't want to say it. So most likely, any relationship that you are going to have after any incidents of gender-based violence, it's most likely going to be dysfunctional because you have not been able to heal. You are still hurting. Now, I think that there could be, I can see some conversations happening, anyone having the same challenge. Kindly someone, if it is Jacinta, tell me whether there is any problem, any challenge.
Yes, someone, Dennis said the president is in the visible on his side.
Okay.
I was asking if there's anyone else with the same challenge.
Is it visible from your side?
Yes, it is.
Okay, probably it is.
Dennis, you may need to work. Okay, you need to work on your to check the network stability, because I can see, if you can see the presentation, kindly thumb up.
Good, good.
Dennis, you can work on your network.
All right, let's continue. Thank you so much, Jacinta. So that is, ongoing relationships are going to be dysfunctional. The other one is anxiety. That is very common. You become very anxious. If you are raped, every time you see a man, anxiety sets in. If you are left at night, every time you are out at night, it is dark is showing up, you start having anxiety. Anytime you go to workplace and then men surround you, it's going to be a problem. You're going to develop anxiety. So anything that triggers the incidence of gender-based violence usually brings about anxiety. Use of alcohol and drug, very common. Most people usually use drugs and alcohol as a way of trying to numb the pain, as a way of trying to silence, they call them the demons, to silence the demons of the incidents that are still haunting them. So people don't use alcohol and drugs as a result of gender-based violence so that they can heal or so that they can resolve the issue. They use drugs as a distraction. They want to be distracted so that they can try to run away from this reality. But you come to realize, as we will be looking at that the last day, that there's no way you can run away from such kind of an incident. The only way is you resolve it and get done with it. The other one is difficulty concentrating. That is very possible because if there's something distracting you, if there's something learning behind your mind, you cannot be able to concentrate on your work, your relationship, your if it is parenting, your academics or anything else. It becomes a challenge. The other one is anger. You are angry at yourself. What was I doing at night? Kwa nini niliaccept huyo jamaa? Kwa nini? That is anger. And also self-blame, which is going to be, iko hapo juu. So anger also, you angry at God. Mungu, kwa nini uliallow huyo jamaa anifanyie hivyo? Why did you, God, allow this to happen to me? So you are very angry at so many people, including yourself. We have feelings of guilt and shame. I had mentioned that earlier. You feel guilty. You start even blaming yourself. You feel, you're feeling guilty for what happened. Maybe I'm the one who made him do it. Maybe I'm the one who failed to do this. That is why this happened to me. Maybe I even deserved it, So you feel a lot of shame. And you cannot even be able to even, that is why you start dissociating, because you don't want to interact with other people, especially those who are aware of what happened. The other one is sleeping problems, especially because of nightmares. You cannot have peace or sleep at peace. The other one is self-blame. You start blaming yourself. Maybe I'm the reason why this happened to me. Maybe I even deserved this. I think ni mimi nilimchokoza. I think isipokuwa ni mimi nilifanya 1, 2, 3, maybe this could not have happened to me. So you start blaming yourself, which is not good. Panic attacks. And then we have, yes, panic attack is the last one, because panic attack usually roots from anxiety. When anxiety matures, when anxiety goes untreated, when anxiety is not checked, when anxiety is left to learn and mature, it matures into panic attacks. I've realized that I've spent quite some time on that, so let us go to the next slide. That is why za mwisho umesikia nimekibiza ulimi na speed ya juu kidogo. The next one is factors that influence hearing. Factors that influence hearing. When we talk about factors that influence can be either negative or positive. But in this case, I want us especially to look at factors or those things that hinder someone or prevent someone from healing when they are victims of gender-based violence. The first one is shame. We have talked about that. There are so many people who don't speak out when they have been abused because wanasema, sasa watu watakuwa wananiona aje? Watu watakuwa wananifikiria aje? Na venye watu wanaonaga mimi ni mtu wa kanisa. Na venye watu wanaonaga mimi huko nje, ile picha niko nayo huko nje nitaharibu. So because of shame, I'm not going to speak out. I'm not going, And now when you don't speak out, you cannot heal. So that is the first factor, which is shame. And shame now is under internal self-appraisal. All right? So internal self-appraisal, appraisal is like approval, self-support. So within yourself, these are the four that are now talking about the shame are happening within you. They're not happening outside of you, but they're happening within you. So I would call these internal factors. The first box that you can see, internal factor, that is internal self-appraisal. That is internal factors that influence your hearing when you are a gender-based violence victim. The first one is shame. You feel a lot of shame. You don't want to speak out. You don't want to talk about it. You blame yourself. So I think I'm the one who was in fault. So hata nikienda kusema, watu tu wataniambia ni mimi nilimkosea. And most likely, the reason why people blame themselves is because wanasema, huyu jamaa venye anajulikana huko nje, venye anajulikana yeye ni mzuri. Venye huwa anaportray picha mzuri huko nje, watu definitely watasema ni mimi nilimchokoza ama ni mimi niko in fault, so you keep it to yourself. We have self doubt. Self doubt is now where you feel like you don't have the what it takes to be able to speak out. You don't have the power to face this issue or even accept that this has happened to you. So when you start doubting your ability and your power and your capability to heal, then you don't heal. That becomes a barrier to your healing. We have fear of social reactions. So unaanza kujiuliza watu watasema nini? You know, what will people say? That is happening within you. And that is now what we call self-defeat. Nobody is telling you that shame on you. Nobody is telling you shame on you so that you can have shame. You are telling it to yourself. You are saying to yourself, shame on me, shame on me, shame on me for what happened. And you are a victim, remember. You are also blaming yourself. Nobody is blaming you, but you are already blaming yourself. The next one, that is the next box now, is external factors. That is social context on recovery. Social context. The first one is normalization of violence. I think we mentioned this when we were looking at stigma, the first session. We talked about normalization of violence. But normalization can also happen at an individual level. I've had someone tell me in a therapy session, ananiambia, Eliud, unajua sasa niliangalia statistics nikaona that 4 women out of 100, which probably could translate like, around 3 out of 10 women, they have been abused in one way or another. So ni kama tuko wengi, unaona? So ni kama tuko wengi. So nikaona kama tuko wengi hivi, hata hakuna haja. This thing is affecting almost everybody. I'm not the only victim. Ni kama tunaafektiwa sisi wote. So wacha tu sio mimi peke yangu. Watu wengi wanameafektiwa na wananyamazia. Watu wengine wanaafektiwa na wanakaa na. So hata mimi wacha tu nikae nayo. That is normalizing violence within yourself. You are telling yourself because tuko wengi, wacha mimi ninyamazie. I'm not the only one. But that is not a justification why you should not seek help. Also, the society can normalize violence, whereby perpetrators in a relationship ends up not being punished. No actions are taken to the perpetrators or those people who are abusing people in the society. So that is one thing that actually normalizes violence. So remember yesterday I told you that my son is at the age where now he is experimenting anything. Akiona chakula iko jikoni anataka arushe kidole ajue kwa nini hiyo maji inarukaruka na basin yenye huwa anaoga nayo huwa hairukaruki. Anataka test, anataka afanye vitu zenye hafai. Akipatiwa chakula badala ya kula na kijiko anaweka yote na sufuria na sahani kwa kichwa. Sasa sometimes utasikia akipiga filimbi, akifanya misbehavior. Because I'm presenting this from home, I'm not in the office. In case you hear that, just enjoy the background, anything that is happening in the background, and don't let it interfere with your concentration. Now, I will also make sure that if anything is happening in the background, I'm not going to bring it in the foreground. Yeah, Thank you so much. So, social context, we have social expectations or societal expectations. There are high expectations. You know, I'm expected to be strong, and especially men. Sasa nikienda kuongea na society inasema wanaume wanafaa kuwe strong, watu watanisikiza, then you don't heal. The other one is social reactions to self disclosure. Nikienda ni open up, sasa watu wataniona aje? Nikienda nijielezee, watu watanichukulia kama nadanganya ama wataichukulia kama ni ukweli? Will people really say, how will people take it? So social reactions, when you're afraid of how people will react to you expressing yourself and talking about gender-based violence incidents that has happened to you, then you don't speak out and definitely you don't heal. The good news is, this is the last slide. That's the most good news. But I might take a few minutes here because I believe we still have some 15 to 20 minutes because we started late. So I'll make sure that I do this within 10 to 15 minutes so that we can have time for questions. Now, healing from gender-based violence. This is now the most fundamental and important section. You have been abused. You have been through violent environments. You have either witnessed or you have been a primary victim of gender-based violence. Now, what do you do? Now, I want us to look at this chart, which is now also going to help us to understand how healing shows up, you know, how people start healing, the process of healing, and how you should be able to overcome barriers that we have talked about up there, that, you know, the barriers that prevents you from healing. Healing after gender-based violence. We are going to start with reconnecting with self. Now, there are 3 major pillars of healing from gender-based violence incidences. If you are a victim of gender-based violence, there are 3 pillars of healing. These are the 3 foundations that are going to make sure that your healing is successful. The first one is reconnecting with yourself. You want to reconnect with yourself. Why? Because most people have lost the connection that they had with themselves as a result of shame, self-blame. We have talked about that. So most people usually say, and now I want to start with the first one, reclaiming identity. Reclaiming identity, other, reconnecting with yourself. Most people usually say, when I was raped, when I was abused, whether physically, sexually, emotionally, or psychoeconomically, I changed how I used to view myself. I changed how I used to see myself. I used to see myself as a very strong person. I used to see myself as a very, somebody who has self-control. I used to see myself as somebody who has principles and values and somebody who has discipline. And now, after the incidents, I changed how I see myself. That means that your perception about yourself has changed. Self-perception has changed. And now that is what you must reconnect. You must reclaim your identity. Why? Because in one way or another, after incidents of rape or incidents of physical abuse or whatever kind of abuse, you have lost your identity. This is where somebody will start questioning their strengths. As I have mentioned, I thought I was strong, but I think I was very weak. Huyo jamaa alinidanganyiriria. Nikaona ni mtu mzuri na nikaitikia kwenda kwake. Nikaingia box, nikaenda hadi kwake. But I was so weak, I did not see it coming. I was so weak, I did not fight back. I was so weak, I did not speak out. I'm so weak, you know. So people start questioning their strength. They start questioning their values. They start questioning their worth. They start feeling out of control, that they cannot control their emotions. They cannot control their feelings, you know. And that is even where they start saying, I don't deserve to be alive. Now that is where now the issue of self-harm comes in. I don't deserve to be alive. After what has happened to me, I cannot live with this. I cannot live with this. I would rather be dead than face this reality. So that is something that you have to change. If you want to heal from any incidents of gender-based violence, you have to change that. You have to reconnect with yourself. You have to reclaim your identity. Just like the way I could be having, niko na note kweli. Wacha nione wallet yako kama good boy. Niko na ka pesa hapa kidogo. Yes, sijasota sana. All right. So, I have a 100 shillings note. Yes, ile mpya. Hii si ya kitabo, ni ile mpya. So, I have a 100 shilling note, and I want to demonstrate to you what reclaiming your identity means. If I take this 100 note. Anyway, sahi nani anaitaka? Mikono juu. Nani anataka hii 100? Anybody who wants this 100? Anitaka kwa mpesa alafu nikutumie. Good. Mikono ni mingi sana. Unfortunately, juu mko wengi itabidi nibaki nayo. So, this 100 note. If I fold this 100 note, no matter how many times I fold it, ni kuja itoshane na karatasi. Alafu hata ikae aje, itoe tu alafu nikuulize, bado nani anataka hii pesa? I believe kuna mtu bado atainua mkono aseme, bado nataka hiyo pesa. Nichukue niirushe kwa matope, nikanyage hata kama si matope, hadi animal feces. Niweke kwa kinyesi ya ng'ombe, ni pake uchafu. Alafu niulize nani anataka hii pesa? Utasema hiyo kitu ukichukua uoshe itakuwa mpya. Bado kuna watu wataitaka. That is the same thing that I'm saying. When you are a victim of domestic violence, you are just like this 100 note. No matter what has happened to you, you have not lost your value. Hata ni irarue utachukua na uweke sellotape for as long as what is the most important has been left. Sijui kuna lines huwa wanasema kuna sijui numbers fulani kama hazijaharibika, it's still valid. So that's the same case with you when you have been abused. You are still the same person. Your value is still there. Hata kama umepakwa matope, ukakanyagwa, ukarushwa wapi, ukafanyiwa nini, by the end of the day, your identity, you are still the same person until you decide to convince yourself otherwise. If you decide to believe that you are worthless, that you are valueless because you have been abused, if you decide to believe that you do not deserve to be alive, you'll surely die because you're going to kill yourself. Just like this note, it never loses its value. That's the same case with you. That is the first step that you must make. You must reconnect with yourself. Because the real self is still there. The real self is still as amazing, as worthy, as wonderful, as beautiful, as handsome, as cute, as sexy, as amazing, as gorgeous as you were before whatever happened to you happened. Reclaim that and you will have taken the first step, the most profound step to your healing. Poleni sana kwa kuwamezesha mate na pesa, lakini inarudi kwa wallet yangu. Now, the next one is the next one about reconnecting with yourself is managing symptoms. When we are talking about management of symptoms, we are talking about emotions and emotional and physical symptoms. When you are replaying, because I told you that sometimes these victims can replay the memories of the incidents. Remember what we talked about flashbacks? That's what I'm displaying right there. When we are talking about flashbacks, I told you that when you are having flashbacks of an abuse case, an abuse incident or experience, when you are having those flashbacks, you are most likely going to experience the same emotional pain that you experienced when that incident happened. So the next step that you want to take is to make sure that you learn how to manage your emotional and physical symptoms that are associated by memories and replaying of the incidents of abuse that happened to you. Those memories that are related to the incidents are very traumatic. And anything that relates to trauma is not something to be taken lightly. It's not something that you can take for granted. So please, after you reclaim your identity, because it is still there, remember, I've not said that you create your identity. I've not said that you generate your identity. No, I've said you reclaim. Not claim, but reclaim. When you are reclaiming, it means it is there. What you are doing is you are getting it back. So that's the first step. The next one is managing symptoms. And I've talked about emotional symptoms, and especially the ones that happened because of the traumatizing experience or event. And then the third one is regaining control. Remember, I had mentioned that when somebody has been raped, when somebody has been physically, emotionally, and in other ways abused, they feel like, I thought I was so much in control of myself. I thought I am very strong. So then, at that particular time now, you need to regain your control. Not gain, but regain, because you used to have it. Now, go back and get it. So you reclaim your identity, you manage your symptoms, and then you regain your control. Get back to be the one who is in charge and in control of your life. Don't let what people think about you make you want to kill yourself, want to harm yourself. Don't make what the society define a victim of sex abuse as. Don't let that control you. Regain your control. You are still in control. You may not really control, and when you're talking about control, let me say that before I go to the next one, reconnecting with others. When we are talking about regaining control, I'm not talking about controlling others. I'm not talking about controlling the society. I'm not talking about controlling what people think about you. I'm not talking about controlling what people say about you. No. Don't waste your time and resources controlling what others think or say about you, or about your life, or about what has happened to you, because that is a game you will never win. When I'm talking about control, I'm talking about you controlling what is happening within you. Not controlling what is happening outside of you, but within you. Controlling your emotions, controlling your feelings. And let me tell you something. It doesn't matter what people say to you. It doesn't matter what people think about you. It doesn't matter how people treat you. What matters is how you react and respond to what others do. Let me repeat that as a preacher. Somebody say amen. Somebody say amen. So, what matters?
Amen.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. Yes, I am feeling like now the Holy Spirit is coming down upon me. Imekuwa mzuri. So, when you are regaining your control, as I've said, you are not controlling the external reactions or the external forces or anything that is outside of you. That is a game you will never win. You are controlling you, not others. It doesn't matter what people think about you. It doesn't make any difference what people say about you. It doesn't affect you what people think, say, and feel about you. What affects you is what you think about what people think about you. How you respond to what people do is what makes the difference. If you are raped and people tell you wewe ulirepiwa juu ulikuwa umevalia miniskirt, wewe ulirepiwa juu ulikuwa unatembea huko nje, wewe ni wewe ulimseduce. So if you accept what they are saying, that is when you get affected. If people tell you it was your fault, that is where you are raped. And then you are like, I also think it's my fault. I think it's also my fault. That's why I was raped, because it was my fault. Now, that you get affected. But what happens when people tell you it was your fault, that is why you are raped, and then you are like, oh, God knows, and I know that it was not my fault. I had nothing to do with what happened to me. It had nothing to do with me. I know what happened, and therefore I don't care about what people say or what they think. That way, you will be building the muscles of controlling how you respond and how you react to what people do, not controlling what people do or say about your situation. Because the control is within you, not outside of you. And that is something that I would like everybody here to apply, not only in cases of violence or abuse, but in any other life situation. Even if you have low self-esteem, apply that. Even if you doubt yourself, apply that. Even if people say whatever they say, apply that. It doesn't matter who they are, whether it is your parents, whether it is your siblings, whether it is your religious guys, whether it is the government, nobody. So don't care about what people say, control what you can control, and that is how you react to what people do or say. After that now, after you have been able to reconnect with yourself, I've started with reconnecting yourself because you are the most important person here. Your reconnection with yourself is what makes all the difference, as I have told you. That's why I've started with that. So start with reconnecting yourself, and then after you have successfully reconnected with yourself, go to reconnecting with others. Others come second, you come first. So now, when we're talking about reconnecting with others, sense of belonging, as I told you, when you have been abused, there's a very high possibility that you will have lost all your friends. Very high possibility. Because ya ile jina yenye imeenda huko nje, wewe ni mtu wa kuchapwa, wewe ni mtu sijui wa kufanywa nini, and especially men, all friends are going to run away from you. Nobody want to start with you. So after you have reconnected with yourself, now start reconnecting with others. Start reconnecting with the society. Start reconnecting with the groups. Because most likely, you come to realize those people who have been sexually, emotionally, or verbally, or physically abused, they usually disconnect from any social interactions. Anaacha kwenda kanisa, anaacha kwenda chama, anaacha kwenda shule, anaacha kwenda muugithi, anaacha kwenda parties, anaacha, hizo vitu zote. Kama ni games walikuwa wanaenda, anaacha kwenda. So you need now to start reconnecting with others, because others are a part and parcel of your healing journey. So you need to start getting back your sense of belonging, and that starts from you. Start feeling like you belong. Because especially, I'm using religion because it's one of the most dangerous group when you have been abused. They really run away from you very fast. So especially if you are a Christian and then something happened to you, So maybe you are in an abusive marriage and then ukachapwa na bwanako, and then unfortunately ulikuwa pregnant and then miscarriage. And then people start saying, kuna kumiscarriage or miscarriage, and especially when they cannot see the physical scars. Anasema alipigwa na bwanake ati mimba ikatoka. Hakuna. Unaona pahali amekuwa wewe? Unaona pahali yako na black eye? Hana. So ni uongo, ni kutudanganya, anatudanganya ati anapigwa na bwanake. Na hata anasema anapigwa na bwanake ndiye person hapa kwa kanisa. Bwanake ndiye huwa anaomba hapa kwa kanisa, Holy Spirit anakuja. Hata kama Holy Spirit alikuwa mbinguni anakuja na chakula huku. Holy Spirit anakuja emergency case. Bwanake akiomba. Alafu anakuja kutudanganya hapa ati bwanake alimpiga, ati ndio mimba ikatoka. Hakuna, aliabort. Hiyo mimba ni kutoa, alitoa. So now after you have reconnected with yourself, now you go back to reconnect with others. Because most likely they misjudged you. They really judge you harshly. They will. They will judge you harshly. That one I expect from them. But when they judge you harshly, don't let it penetrate through. Don't believe it. Don't let it penetrate. So you start reconnecting with others. If it is that church, you start going back pore pore. If it is that group, you start going back. You don't have to explain to them. If they still don't want you to go back to them, wachana na wao, waacha wakwende. If they don't want you back, let them be. Find other societies which are going to accept you. Because we even have support groups for those people who are victims of gender-based violence. That is a group that you know will never reject you. So go to the people who are accepting you. Those who are rejecting you, don't force them to accept you. Let them go. Go to the people who are willing to get into your shoes, to understand what happened to you without judging you harshly, without calling you a sinner, without calling you words, without naming you. Go to such groups, but you try and reconnect. You only try and reconnect to the groups and those people who are willing to reconnect with you. Those who are not willing, let them be. Relating to others, you start now recreating the relationships. You start recreating the trust. You start getting back to the people who you used to relate with. The last one is reconnecting to the world. Remember, we started with reconnecting with yourself. You are the most important person in this equation. Without you, this equation is never going to balance. After that, now, you go to reconnecting with others, especially those who are close to you, the close friends, the close families. Because believe me, even when you have been abused, everybody runs away from you. Not just friends, even very close. Even your own parents will disown you. Watasema unatuletea aibu kwa familia. You are a disgrace to this family. We don't want to be associated with you in any way. Because you have been in 3 abusive marriages. Hawezi tuambia ati umekuwa kwa 3 marriages ukipigwa, alafu tuambie ati hao mabwana wote ni wao wabaya. You know? And most likely, the reason why you are landing in wrong hands, the reason why you are landing in traumatizing and abusive relationships, it's because of the kind of a childhood that you had, which you are exposed to the same parents who are rejecting you. And that is very ironical. Very bad, very ironical. You find parents, hawa wazazi walikuwa wanapigana wewe ukiwa mdogo. Uli grow up with violence. Yeah? The only language you know in the environment that you grew up in is violence. Wazazi wanapigana, wanatusiana, wamefanya vituko huko. And then, because all you know is violence, all you are thinking about is violence, you most likely going to end up similar characters who have grown up in similar environments of violence. Because what dominates our mind is what we end up attracting. That's the same thing that I told you about our mind. Our minds are very powerful. You're most likely going to realize that those people who have been brought up in violent environments, they are most likely going to, I'm not saying it's 100%, but there's a very high, it's a risk factor. There's a very high possibility of them interacting with somebody, either who have been brought up in a similar environment, or somebody who is going to recreate the same environment. So you find parents, wao wenyewe ndio walikufanyia hiyo madhara, ndio walikuexpose kwa trauma and violence when you are growing up. But then when you end up in the similar situations, they end up blaming you. But they are actually the ones to blame. So the society can be very ruthless. The society sometimes doesn't care. Most likely the society is going to clap for you when they are benefiting from you. when they are sucking you, when they are draining you, when you are benefiting them. But that day when you are not benefiting them, instead of clapping for you, they will slap you. They will slap you. So when you have done one single mistake, most people are going to disown you. They are going to run away from you. So along your healing journey, at one juncture, you want to recreate or reconnect with those people. Now, the last section is reconnecting with the world or to the world. Releasing negativity. So negativity, what I want to say is, negativity is a state of mind. Is a state of mind. It is your mindset. Because that which you are taking negatively, someone else is taking it positively and actually benefiting from it. You're going to realize that. This is what happens. Two people gets abused. The same abuse, the same intensity, the same magnitude, the same everything. One person after 1 month sits down, anajiambia hivi. Now, kama tuseme ni mimi Eliud na kuna best yangu anaitwa Kenothia. Mimi kama Eliud nakaa chini. Sisi wote tumepigwa na mabibi zetu. We are victims of abuse, domestic violence. And then tumepigwa, and then mimi nakaa chini after 1 month. Najiambia now Eliud. Now, kugogwa na bibi yako. Hiyo ni kitu sasa lazima uaccept. Hiyo nayo kugogwa, uligogwa vizuri. Hakuna ati kudeny uligogwa. Eliud, hiyo bibi alikugogwa vizuri. Now, kugogwa ushagogwa, we cannot undo that. And you lost the kind of maybe ile jina ulikuwa nayo huko nje ilipotea, kind of ilifade kidogo. Ni kama umechapa huko nje kiasi, because ile picha ile story watu wanapeana huko nje ya jamaa anagogwa na bibi si mzuri. So huko nje watu hawakuongelea vizuri, so picha huko nje umechoma. Even personally unafeel ni kama wewe you are not worth it. And then mimi najiambia hiyo story, I'm talking to myself, and then najiambia now, but Eliud, remember you have a life to live. You cannot let this single moment of violence define the rest of your life. Eliud, you cannot let these incidents of domestic violence define you. So you have to move on with your life. You have to stop not giving an F-U-C-K about what people say or think. You need to stop listening to what people are saying and start listening to what you are saying about yourself. After all, Eliud, what matters is what you think about yourself, not what others think about you. And therefore, Eliud, I want you to smile, hold your head up high, shake what your mama gave you, and show these people what you got. Show these people what you are made of. Go back like you never left. Go back like nothing happened to you. Go back and shine. So stop thinking that you are worthless. Stop thinking that you are valueless. Stop thinking that you are good for nothing. Stop thinking that you are dirty. Stop thinking that you are messy. Stop thinking that you are a useless man, that you are not a man enough. Stop thinking that. Go back. Wacha ujinga, Eliud, rudi. Hiyo ni mimi najiambia hivyo. What have I done? I have released all negative mindsets. I have released all self-sabotaging statements. I have released all negativity that could be holding me back from continuing with my life. And then Kenothia, my friend, who was also aligogwa vizuri na bibi yake kama drums za haleluya. On the other hand, na yeye pia anaanza kujiambia na mimi kama Kenothia guy, ile design niligogwa. Siwezi amini ni mimi niligogwa hivyo. Na venye nilikuwa najiambia mimi ni mwanaume akia nani. Na venye nilikuwa naenda huko nikiwa mlevi naambia watu wanasema mimi ni nani. Watu nauliza watu mnanionaga aje? Mimi nilikuwa na jina mzuri huko nje, sasa imeharibiwa. Juu ya venye nimegogwa na bibi. I'm useless. I'm good for nothing. I'll never be able to get back to my workplace. I'll never be able to do this. I'll never amount to anything. I'll never even marry. I'll never find someone to love me again. I'll never be loved. I'll never be accepted. I'll never do this. I'll never do that. Kenothia decides to tell himself the exact opposite of the story that I told myself. And then he accepts that negativity. And after 5 years, both of us, victims of the same incidents, of the same magnitude, of the same attitude, well, all those. But personally, mimi nilikaa chini na nikajiambia story mzuri na nika-release all negativity, nikaendelea na maisha yangu. I'm thriving out there. Actually, because of the abuse yenye nilipitia, Watu wananiita hadi kule Inoro na Citizen TV wananiambia, Eliud, wewe ulipigwa na bibi. And now here you are driving. You are back in the... Tell us how you did it. And then I become a hero. Juu nilikuwa na bibi yangu. Na yeye Kenodia pale on the other side. Anakuwa mlevi, anakuwa addict, anakuwa especially addiction, anaenda into prostitution and all that with the same thing, the same experience that we had. So mimi, the same experience imeniinua, ikanipeleka hata pahali singeenda bila hiyo experience. But Kenodia, because I decided to hold on to negativity, kujiambia vitu negative, yeye ameenda chini na mimi nikainuka. That is the negativity that I'm talking about. You have and you must release those negative stories, those negative narratives, those self-sabotaging ideas that you have and mindsets and beliefs simply because you are a victim of violence. You have to release all that negativity so that you can create room for positive vibes, so that you can create room for positive things to happen in your life. So that is it about releasing negativity. When you release negativity, you open yourself up to see new possibilities. You open new doors of possibility, new doors of success, new doors of healing, and you are able to reconnect successfully with the rest of the world. But that's only going to happen if you started with reconnecting with yourself, and then you go ahead and reconnect with those people who are close to you, and then now we are focusing on reconnecting with the world. And this is now even where you start reconnecting with God. You can either decide to reconnect with God, that is your higher power, whether you call it universe. Kama kuna any Indian hapa anatuwatch, huwa wana higher power yao, wengine ni ng'ombe, so some worship cows, wengine hivyo. So wewe, your higher power. So you can decide to reconnect with your higher power at any particular stage in this. So as I go to the last step, to the last one, on releasing negativity, let me tell you this, that if the world rejects you, please never reject yourself. When the world rejects you, accept yourself. The reality is you are never 100% rejected. You are never 100% discriminated. You will never be 100% alone. And especially if you can cultivate that self-reconnection, you will always love yourself. So even if the whole world rejects you, you will always be there to accept yourself. If the whole world hates you, you will be there to love yourself. If the entire world discriminates you, you will be there to accept yourself, to value yourself, to not judge yourself. So reconnect with yourself. And that alone is going to help you to reconnect with others and the world. And lastly, living a purposeful life. I've shown you a note, and despite what happened to you, you are still as worthy as you were before they decided to mess your life up. You still have a purpose in this life. That is why you are still alive. Because let me tell you something, God never makes mistake. Believe me, there's a child, there's somebody who died today. Alilala tu. Asubuhi ameamka amekufa. And there's somebody who had a promising future. Maybe ni mtoto. Na wewe umeabisiwa ukiwa 45 years old. Uko 45 ama 50 ama 60. And then unasema simply because I've been abused and you are still alive, then I'm a waste of life. I'm a waste of breath. Afadhali nikufe. I don't know, I no longer have a purpose in my life. Afadhali nikufe, hii life ipewe mtoto mwenye angekufa. The reason why you are still alive is because you are supposed to be alive. The reason why you are breathing is because there's kwa ile nini, ile mtungi ya hewa iko biguni yenye huwa inalilisiwa bado yako haijaisha. Hiyo mtungi yako haiko empty bado. There's still air for you to breathe. That's why you are still alive. For as long as you are breathing, just know that you are breathing for a purpose. So you never lose your purpose, no matter what happens to you. Nothing in this life should happen to you and make you doubt your purpose in this life. Because your purpose is not dependent on what happens to you. Your purpose is divinely determined. You have been divinely ordained to do something. And until you have done it, there's nowhere you are going. There's nowhere you are going. So you still have a purpose. You are still worthy. You are still valuable. You are still amazing. You are still useful before and after violence. So no matter what happens to you, never ever doubt your worth. Never ever doubt your purpose in this life. Maybe, let me tell you something. Maybe your purpose in this life was to go through that experience so that through your experience, others can heal. That could be your purpose. You are saying, I don't have a purpose in this life because I was sexually abused. You are saying, I'm useless in this life because I was physically or emotionally or sexually abused. But maybe, just maybe, your purpose was to be abused. I'm not saying anybody deserves to be abused. I'm not saying that. But there's nothing under the sun that happens for no reason. Nothing happens by accident. Even accidents themselves don't happen by accident. That's the reality. So you being abused had a purpose, had something to serve in your life. That is why you had to go through that. If it was not necessary, if it was not of any benefit to you or to others, you would not have gone through it. Believe me, you would not have. So it has happened most likely to your advantage. But it has only happened to your advantage if you are going to see it as so. If you decide that something is a curse, it becomes a curse. If you decide that something is a blessing, it becomes a blessing. That is why I've given you with my own example. That for example, mimi na Kenodia tumechapwa na mabibi zetu. Mimi nimeamua kuchapwa na bibi yangu itakuwa baraka yangu. Nitainuliwa na hiyo kuchapwa na bibi yangu. Na yeye Kenodia akaamua kuchapwa na bibi yangu, hiyo ni curse. So I'm going to perish because of this. And someone decides I'm going to thrive and skyrocket in my career and even in personal life because of what has happened to me. So there's nothing that happens for no reason. Just be positive. Don't hold on to emotions. Don't hold on to experiences. In this life, I believe that our core business is to experience things. And it is up to us to decide whether we are going to name them negative or positive. If you go through an experience and you call it a negative experience, it hurts you. If you go through an experience and you call it a negative or unpleasant experience, you suffer from it. But if you go through the same thing and you call it a blessing, you run from it. And then you thrive from it. You grow from it. You become stronger from it. So it's up to us. Because a purpose is there for as long as you can decide to see it. So you are still meaningful. You are still purposeful. You are still worthy. And don't underrate yourself. Don't hate yourself. Don't belittle yourself because of what has happened to you. That has happened to you. You never deserved it, but it happened. You never, it was not your fault, but it happened. So you have to live with it. Don't try to run away from it. Don't try to deny it. Don't try to reject the fact that it happened. Stop learning. This is life. You cannot run away from anything. The reality is, anything you run away from runs after you. It's just like when you run away from a dog, it chases you. Lakini jaribu usimame. Ukisimama sasa uanze kukibiza mbwa, sasa mbwa ndio inatoroka because there is no way nyinyi wawili mnaweza kuwa mnakibizana. Lazima mmoja anakibia, mwingine anakibiza. So the moment umeamua kukibia away from mashida zinakukibiza. The moment umeamua kukibiza mashida sasa zinatoroka, zinakuwa ni wewe unazikibisha. That's what happens in life. So when you try to run away from any experience, that energy, that negative energy that you are emitting by running away, that experience that you are running away from uses that energy as power to run towards you. Let me repeat that. When you run away from something, the negative energy of fear and shame and guilt and blame and feelings of rejection and feelings of worthlessness, that is negative energy that you are emitting. That negative energy that you are emitting is the same energy that thing you are running away from is absorbing, and it is using that energy that you are emitting as power to chase you, to haunt you, to continue causing you suffering. So you are the one who is feeding that which is affecting you. If you stop releasing negative energy, that negative thing that is causing you nightmares, that negative thing that is causing you sleepless nights, that is haunting you, those demons that are haunting you, they will have no energy to haunt you. Why? Because you are not releasing negative energy. And because they feed the negative energy, they are feeding the negative energy that you are releasing. If you release positive energy of accepting yourself, positive energy of not feeling guilty, positive energy of still feeling worthy, positive energy of still telling yourself that I still have a purpose in this life, that is positive energy. Demons, because those demons that are chasing after you, because they suck negative energy, they will not find negative energy in you to suck. So they will never chase after you, they will never haunt you. This is what I'm saying, everyone. Everything that is happening in your life is a reflection of what you are giving. Everything that you are receiving is a reflection of what you are giving. If you are getting suffering, it is because you are releasing suffering energy. And then you are fueling another source to give you back what you are giving out. So if you decide to tell yourself that you are not worthless, that you are not worthy, if you decide to tell yourself that you are not worthy because you are abused, you are releasing worthless energy. And what is going to come to you? Worthless energy. If you release shame energy, what is going to come to you? Shame energy. So if you want to receive love, give love. If you want to receive acceptance, first accept yourself, give acceptance. If you want to receive worth, give worth. That is what you are going to receive. Because everything that you get is a reflection of what you give. So if you can start by telling yourself that I'm worthy despite what happened to me, if you can start by saying that I'm still the same person, I'm still variable, I'm still an amazing person, and I'm not going to let this experience define me. I'm not going to let what happened to me decide the rest of my life. If that is the decision that you are going to make, then you are going to have an amazing life. Just like the person who never went the same experience, or even much better from the person who went through the kind of an experience that you went through. For example, you went through rape, I never did. And we always say that which does not kill you, it makes you better. That which does not kill you, it makes you better, it makes you stronger. So if you have gone through any experience in life, you should be smarter and better. Nilikuwa experience shida kidogo ya network, but nimesema tu nirudi ndio niwaambie thank you so much for watching. If you have any question, if you have anything,
when a man has been beaten
thank
by
you
a
so
woman,
much. So kindly you can also subscribe to this wonderful YouTube channel, share this video with others so that they can also benefit. So thank you so much everyone, and thank you for your support. Asanteni sana. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm here. Sorry, poreni sana, nime experience shida ya network, lakini nime sort. Poreni. I hope sikupotea mbali.
Haukupotea mbali.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
You can just continue. We were going through some questions, some chats on the chat profession.
Okay.
Just continue, sir.
All right, so I'll just conclude on that point. So what I was saying is that when you experience anything in this life, you have a choice to make, because what matters is not what happens to you, it is how you take what happens to you. If you have been a victim of any form of abuse, you can decide to take that as a positive experience, which is going to foster your growth and help you even to help others. Or you can decide to see it as a curse, which is going to cause your suffering and downfall, and you never progress in life. So please, let us start with reconnecting with ourselves, then we reconnect with others, and then we reconnect with the rest of the world. Thank you so much. Back to you, Jacinta.
Thank you so much, Eliud. So far so good. We are really doing well.